Hello and welcome to the first Unsavoury Characters podcast. I'm here, Dom, with Dom, Josh, Harry, and Mark, and we're going to be discussing several aspects of creating a character for an RPG, primarily D&D 5th edition, though this will correlate into other fantasy or futuristic systems of RPGs. The topic today is creating a character. Would you all like to introduce yourselves?
Man, you sound like a colour commentator for like a sport there for a second. You're like, right, we're doing this. This is like an auctioner. That was pretty good.
On a scale of dead inside to dead inside, what would you have?
There's nothing wrong with that.
We're not having like a specific name for this. It was just a podcast. Just a favorite character.
We've already ruined the first take. God damn it.
What is an
RPG? This is podcast material right here. This is just talking.
Let's call it an unsavoury RPG. Some weird shit like that.
Okay. We'll get through that post edit.
And cut.
There we go. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Good job.
What are we talking about first?
Okay.
What are we talking about
The
first?
first topic is a very philosophical, deep question of what is a character. Google will describe the definition of character as someone who's in a novel, play, or film. However, they have the second characteristic, which is the mental and moral qualities distinctive to an individual. So, would you rather take this is just a person in the system, this is my character, this is who I'm playing, or do you find it far more important to go through what's in their mind, what their personality is, rather than them being as a physical item?
I mean, it's once again it's kind of double-edged sword thing of technically if you just have anything, if you have Mr. Blandman who's just like the blandest man around, he's still technically a character. He has no character, but he is a character. So I don't know what kind of character you're looking for us to define.
You mean like
Does he?
No, does he?
I was using my mic headset rather than my Discord headset because that'll make a noise, and I missed the button on my mic headset to unmute it.
Professionalism at its highest quality.
Yes, that's fair enough. You're either going to get Mr. Bland or you can be a character without a character. That rounds us off beautifully, doesn't it?
Yeah, well,
it's a
Double entendre.
character.
A character needs a character, but you can be a character without a character.
yeah.
That started us off hideously. Okay, let's move on.
No, but we're talking about the character side of a character.
As in
Fair.
the personality of a character?
Yeah. Not entirely just their personality, but like how they react to things.
We'll get on to the differences between in-game and from a more role-play perspective later. But
Are we trying to define what is a good character? Like what are good personalities or traits?
sure,
of a character
Josh.
that's
Josh
great?
and anyone else who wants to chip in, give us an ideal character for an RPG scenario.
And I do it up. I mean, it really depends on what the. Unfortunately, for a lot of these things we're going to talk, very, very much depends on what the theme of the game is. Is the thing.
Yep. How about we go Tolkien-esque high fantasy sort of generic D&D, 5th edition at its peak. You know, there's a villain, and you're a party of heroes, maybe a sneaky rogue, maybe a high lawful paladin, just the standard D&D setting, standard high fantasy.
Okay, but they have to fit the story. They have to fit the world around them. They can't be. They have to start off by actually making logical sense in the world that they live in, right? Like that's got to be like a base characteristic. It's got to make sense in the world.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty self-evident. You don't want to build a stormtrooper to go and kill all the elves.
Well, that'd be pretty cool, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you could. You could have like heavy armor, and you could have it made to look like stormtrooper armor, and you could go around shooting them with a crossbow.
That's going to move me swiftly on to our next topic, which is how do you build a character? Do you come up with a concept entirely on your own? Do you take inspiration from films, movies, books, previous characters you've played, a game perhaps, or do you indeed copy a character? Merely take them in, build them a stat block, and move them over into a campaign?
copying is bad. I think you can do whatever you want as long as it fits the tone of the campaign.
I think if you've got like
Copying bad.
a class or like an idea for a character that you want to use, but you're sort of waiting to fit it to whatever sort of the scenario is, then I think that's fine if you copy it across or like the basic idea.
Yeah, but that's
of
copying
the
it across. That's moving a character that you've already made. Copying a character is bad. Like seeing a character and being like, oh yeah, I'll pinch that entire character.
Well, okay. Well, what's the difference between taking inspiration and taking character?
It's about whether you're doing it yourself. You could see a movie and you could say Frozone from The Incredibles, right? You're like, damn, I want to be Frozone.
Wait, why is that the first? Why is that the first thing that's being?
Why is
Frozone ice cool?
Straight away Frozen.
Cool.
Man.
But think about that. You could make Frozone. You could make him have ice powers and have ice coming out. You could make him a cool guy, like a dad figure, right?
Yeah.
Or you could go up on the internet and look up, Frozone build for then whatever game system you're using. Find the first thing and then just port that straight over and be like, look at my cool character.
Is that not exactly already copying? Is that copying with less steps?
No, that's the copying part. The other bit was the first part where you're like, oh, that's cool. I'll make a cool guy with ice powers. The copying part is going on the internet and being like, hey guys, who's done this before?
Is that what makes it just because someone else has done it though?
No. Someone could have done it, but the fact is, it's whether you're taking it from someone else or you're doing it yourself. Making the character from scratch yourself.
So if you copy or dare some might say steal a character that's directly from a film or TV show. Say I want to play Jon Snow or something from the popular franchise Game of Thrones, or popular until the end.
Frozone. It can only be Frozone.
It can only be Frozone. But if I indeed wanted to play Frozone as some sort of ice caster or superhero, and then if I name my character Frozone, and despite the fact that I did everything myself, I created the stat block, I went through, looked at all the spells and said, oh, that one's pretty icy, that one's pretty cool, that one's pretty chill, and other words that are synonymous
and then stop
with
making
ice.
jokes.
Stop making ice puns.
Yes, stop making ice puns.
Ice to meet ya.
I hate you all. But if I did that all myself, and then named the character Frozone and got the picture of Frozone or someone else's fantasy artwork of Frozone, is that not copying or stealing in the same way as stealing someone else's character's build?
No, that's taking inspiration. That's literally...
Well, see, I'd say
naming
that.
Frozone is not taking inspiration.
No, naming a Frozone is like being a bit of a pillock if the campaign doesn't let it. If someone's doing an Incredibles campaign or something,
You can't be Frozone.
you're called a Frozone. But if you're in a high fantasy one, and you're like, yeah, I'm Frozone, guys. Look at my cool skin tight suit. Yeah. People aren't gonna like that.
I think it's probably. I think it's actually fine though to copy a character. I think if you want to find a character on the internet and just copy it down, I think I'm okay with that up to a point, and that point is where it starts breaking immersion for yourself and other people. I think if other people around you are not enjoying the sort of atmosphere you create with the copied character, I think that's probably where it should be.
So it's all to do with the theme of the campaign.
Should be fine.
You don't want the fat plumber of Mario turning up in your
I think if someone's going to enjoy a game, if someone's going to enjoy a game and bring in a Mario and it doesn't ruin the immersion for the other players, I think that's fine. Like they can go and
what about Frozone?
They can find their homebrew rule to like Goomba stomp or everything. Like they can do that. Like
So because Frozen fits into any theme under the sun, does that mean you can play Frozen all the time?
sure, like yeah.
Because you couldn't have Mario in space, but you could definitely have Frozone in space.
Well, no. Super Mario Galaxy. Have you
No. Look, you put Mario in space, he's gonna die. You put Frozone in space,
he breathes in space, mate.
Ice to meet you, space.
Wahoo! It's a me, space.
I guess it's also like your take on the character as well. So even if you have straight up copied it, it's how you think that character again would react in certain situations and how they make sense in the world that's been built by the game master as well. So even though it's still usually not a straight up copy, even if the person has straight up copied it.
I think we mean copy in a different way. I like I'm taking copy to mean like finding a character already made in the game system you want the character for, and then just taking that like character sheet. Whereas you guys are saying copying like, there's this.
Let's take it as two separate points. So you have the argument of reusing someone's character sheet for a character you want to play, or the option of taking the character concept and either stealing, being inspired by, or stealing or being inspired by it.
Sorry, what are you saying? It was a roundabout way of saying nothing at the same time of saying something. What do you mean by that, King?
What does it mean?
Just went on like a long ass tangent.
As in, there's a differentiation between like stat block building and like
stat block stealing and character concept stealing or being inspired by.
Stat block stealing, like if you're stealing someone else's character because you've seen it online and you enjoy their character, why not? Like fucking go for it. I don't think there's any situation unless
I think every situation it's wrong. I think that's I think you're a disgrace. You need to have a pair of balls, have a backbone. You need some integrity.
All D&D characters.
You can do things for yourself.
Up to a point, D&D characters aren't original. Up to a point, D&D characters aren't original by the fact that we're like building them by a set of rules. If you like the way someone else did use the set of rules that you have, like why not go for it? I think
they're unoriginal.
Everyone's going to role play something
fresh
different.
and making it themselves.
Exactly.
Original.
It's everyone's perception of a character is the thing, though. No one will play Frozone exactly like Frozone was played because the guy who played Frozone or voiced Frozone isn't playing Frozone. It's the thing.
Yeah, but no one would build in exactly the same way as well. So why should it be? Okay
and the person who played Frozone didn't build the character of Frozone.
You're like a magpie. No one likes magpies.
Whoa. Say that to the magpie.
You should always
say that to the magpies.
Do you not salute a magpie every time you see one?
I'm friends with a magpie, but only one.
Are you? What's it called? Maggie?
Craig.
Craig.
What a name.
Craig the magpie.
Yeah, I'd have named him.
Did you? Man, that's pretty objectifying of magpies, isn't it? You're just
he's a nice guy.
What,
but
did
he's
he say?
very
Yeah.
unique. He's a very unique individual.
Isn't that implying that all Craigs are nice?
they probably are.
I mean, yeah, probably.
Craig,
I've never met Craig.
Clearly, none of you have ever watched Strictly.
The Craigness of name.
Do you guys not know the infamous Craig on Strictly? Who's an arsehole?
I mean,
I don't watch Strictly,
he's
mate,
never given anyone a 0, though, has he?
Yeah, he's not.
Yes, he has.
He
Yeah.
gives them
I'm
hot
pretty sure he has.
Has he given someone a 0 on their dance? Man, what an asshole.
Look, you really changed your tune.
Craig the magpie isn't the same Craig on Strictly.
God, speaking of integrity, Josh. God, you gotta stick to one line of argument. You can't just flip so quickly like that.
Inherently, humans in general are just quite hypocritical. So I can say one thing and completely change my tune if a more logical thinking.
I don't think so.
If another Craig comes along.
Hypocritical.
Craig that's different to your Craig, who's an arsehole, then not all Craigs can be nice. Technically and generally is an arsehole.
Also, surely you can hold an opinion until given counter evidence, in which case you're allowed to change.
Does a name make a character? Yeah. Calling someone Craig, does that make them embody the traits of a Craig? Can you apply traits to a name?
Wait. Now we're coming off topic because
the exact same character with two different names. Would they end
You
up
only
being?
just noticed this, Josh.
Originally, this conversation was about Craig being a nice guy, just generally. All Craigs being nice guy.
Originally, this conversation had nothing to do with Craig.
Well, yeah, but it is now.
Craig is an integral part of this conversation.
Yeah.
Cannot ignore him.
So is Frozone, apparently.
Oh, we're talking about copy. Well, the thing is, I play loads of characters which have been copied off general people. Like, I am the biggest culprit out of all of us for copying
You are indeed.
ideas. And
I'm glad you accept it.
Yeah, would you say that the characters that I've copied as a PC have been the exact same as the character that I've copied off of?
I mean, I'd say no, because I feel like the take you had on the character, Josh, was significantly different that at least I struggled to tell they were copies in the first place. So you fooled me.
And if not, you will have chosen anyway the parts that you liked about the character and would have sort of accentuated them compared to other factors which you may have just ignored because you either didn't think about it at the time or didn't like it as much as the character. I feel like everyone will make their own style changes to copies anyway, which is fine. It's good.
Well, you would hope
It's
they would.
less than copies.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the answer to the question. I don't know what the question was. What was the question, King?
The question was, is it good? Like, I mean, there's no objective answer, but is it?
Sorry. Are you eating?
Are you eating again?
What are you eating?
No, I wasn't. I wasn't eating. I was about to eat.
Wait.
Was it another rapper? It sounded like another rapper.
Yeah, that's the thing is,
would you have to do like a preparation phase before you eat? Where you go?
No. So what happened was I got a sweet, right, and accidentally.
Now you want to buy the sweets.
And accidentally flicked it underneath my desk. So in an effort to retrieve it, I banged my mic against the table.
That was not a banging mic against the table sound. That was an eating sound.
I've not eaten yet. So
That's the loudest excuse I've ever heard.
that's a fact, Mark. I've not eaten the sweets yet. I merely.
It's just because everything Dom does is lousy, so even the truth becomes lousy.
The question was: is it okay to steal characters?
No.
Yes, if it's not like a clone.
Never. If you steal a character, I will hunt you down. I will tie you to a cross, and I will leave
Harry,
you there.
you yourself steal.
I've made one character ever who has not been
You
stolen.
make comedy characters based on real
You've
people.
made one character that's not been stolen. What about all the other ones?
So all the
They've
other
all
ones
been
were stolen.
But in the terms of stealing that I said was okay, yeah? Where you take inspiration from somewhere.
You mean you made D'Artagnan as a dart thrower and Britney Spears as a spear thrower?
Look, Britney Spears isn't technically a character, yeah? Because you can't have a character just having the mechanics.
Where's Frozone in that?
Look, there isn't Frozone, but there is Ice Ice Baby.
Okay, that might as well be Frozone, yeah.
Look, don't get me
Okay.
started on Britney Spears and D'Artagnan.
Yeah, I don't want to know.
Because they don't have any personality yet, so they're not really characters.
Bouncing directly off of that statement that they're not a character without a personality. What is your opinion on the divide between power gaming and stat optimizing for combat purposes or for ability checks or anything like that, or a fully like immersive role play, personality and emotions and all that sort of stuff on the different sides of the spectrum of character?
I'm heavily in favour of roleplay over gaming. I hate gaming to such a horrible extent. I hate it so much.
Yeah, but
Go.
it's I think like power gaming, like sure you can build a character where you're trying to make them as good at something as possible, but like ultimately, if you're trying to create a character like Frozone, you are limited by the system, and so what Frozone is capable of is not going to be truly replicated in any system you use. So power gaming is going to happen to some extent where what the character can do and what they can't do doesn't match what you want them to be able to do. And literally, it just means you're limited by whatever system you're using. That's literally what it means.
Yeah, but then power gaming is taking your like stats to the limit of that.
Yeah.
That's what power. But I don't think it's such a bad thing. I don't really care. I'd rather someone finds a happy little.
Yeah, exactly. You can probably juggle both to some degree. You make ideal choices for your character to make it them both look good and also do things well, but also a degree of consideration. Like it's not really mutually exclusive by too far of an extent. I mean, you can do both roleplay.
You can't have them both be like mutually exclusive because of say that you make like a Gary Stew character, right? So that's from the roleplay perspective, and you're perfect, you're good at everything. Well, then comes in the game system's limitations. You can't be good at everything. You're like, well, I'm super strong. The person who's playing the barbarian in your party sitting there with like 18 strength with your like measly 13 or whatever, just because you needed to balance your stats evenly. He just comes and lifts something, and you're like, well, my character should be able to lift it from a roleplay perspective. But the system like jumps in and is like, nope.
Yeah, but that's just a shit character, though.
Well, it is a shit character.
But yeah, so what you're drawing then is you have to sort of, you should try and make a character that sort of fits within the limits of the system as well as in the limits of the world.
Oh yeah. Take both.
Of course.
Both into account when you're making a character, because otherwise you're going to have like half a character and it's not going to be very fleshed out.
What if you've only got a?
Well, if I think the catering to half.
Does the half a character personality come through if you build an entirely roleplay character, or does it own? Because I think it only comes through if you build a fully power game character with no real personality or like ideas and all that. Rather than, I think you can have a fully fleshed out character who's got shit stats because they've just been either power gamed or not.
No.
Shit
stats are fine, but it's about like. So, is there a clash between your roleplay and the actual, like how you do like rolls in the system or stat checks in the system, or stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely.
If there's a clash between the two, that's bad because you've not taken into account like the two rely on each other. You can't say one thing than another and have it be completely contradicted in the other half of the character.
How do you mean say one thing then another?
Well, like I said before, right? If you're saying from like a roleplay perspective, your character's super strong, but then in the game system you have a fairly low stat that corresponds to your character's strength.
So you
there's
almost
a huge clash there.
So
you say your
almost
character's really smart, but your like mental ability is very low.
It could almost be reversed in a way then. If you have an RP in an RP perspective, if you don't have much character in terms of RP, but you have a fully optimized build from stats, then I don't see. As in, that doesn't rely.
No, there isn't a problem, but you're going to make other players in your campaign feel really bad if you power game your character, and like every time your DM rolls up initiative, you just start like barking all this like stupid one-track thing that you do every turn because it's really powerful and you found like a really niche way of absolutely
But then it surely works the other way, where a character builds someone completely dedicated to the roleplay, and so when they're not in the spotlight of the roleplay, their character is doing nothing. So they then end up taking the spotlight the whole time. Which
they don't have to take the spotlight the whole time just because of roleplay, because of not everyone has to pop up when it comes to mechanics. You know, when you're coming into roleplay, it should really split equally between all members of the party. It should. And just because one person's having a roleplay moment doesn't mean other people shouldn't be jumping in and talking. You are all like present at the same time. In reality, when you're having like a conversation, it wouldn't just be like 6 of you gathered around one man and one of you having a one-on-one conversation.
But does that
You'll be chipping in
not often happen? I'd argue that there's always a dominant force in, like, Josh, you often build characters who are very focused on roleplay, and I'd definitely say I'd argue your characters are very dominant when it comes to roleplay, especially within our typical parties. Whereas someone might build a very good combat character but have little in terms of roleplay.
I mean, it's more so a style of roleplay. Some people just like being like less like taking the initiative, or like they just like being there, like present, but they don't have to take any kind of like leadership role. You can just be in the background and there can still be roleplay. I tend to take more leading roles in roleplay. I might steal the spotlight and take away everyone else's chance to roleplay. But I feel like if you want to roleplay, you can just roleplay and you can just jump in and say something. I don't think taking a leading role in roleplay takes away from other people's roleplay, because you can just jump in whenever you want, is the thing.
Also, if you build a character that's like not very good at socially interacting, then by definition, if you are role playing that character, you're not going to be as dominant in like NPC conversations. just because of.
But then that's a
your
flawed
characters.
character. Then, if you're making a character whose whole shtick is "I don't talk to people," it's not going to be very fun for anyone else. It's going to be like, "All right, okay, we're going to go over and talk to this guy, and such isn't going to say a word."
Yeah, but
again.
my point is that your personality traits may well affect how much your character interacts with other characters, which is
but it shouldn't.
Normal. Should it not?
It shouldn't, because of, like, say you have a character who's like socially inept. It's interesting to then see roleplay when they're forced into situations where they do have to interact socially. Just because you've built a character in a certain way doesn't mean that they should have any less interactions with NPCs or the party.
No. It's what role they play in roleplay. If someone's socially inept, like us, for example, us generally in real life, socially inept. As we talk to people, we would definitely talk to people. We have to be in some conversation, but we won't like initiate any kind of questioning or any kind of thing. We will just answer what's been given to us, and we can answer it however we want. So we will still role play. It's just we're more on the receiving end of questioning rather than the ones initiating conversational role play, I think.
And we're not as much in the spotlight by that definition.
Well, that's more 50-50. Because essentially a person can still try and make conversation. It just doesn't really work out normally. And that's still a leading bit of role play because it's your conversation that you're trying to start. You might not actually start it because you're socially inept, but you're still trying to do something.
I like that. Like POV, you're going to the bank, right? You want to set up a new account. Yeah.
Ugh, already I hate it.
You have to go and you have to say something. You can't walk up to them and they're like, "Hello, what do you want?" And they whip out like a list and you point to what you want. You have to be proactive. You've got to get in there yourself. Every character will have situations where they do have to step up and say something, or at least they should. And if you have a member of the party, who's like a leading force, maybe sometimes they should be like, "Actually, no, I won't," and force the stupid idiot who's been quiet for the past 10 sessions to step up and say something to the big scary man who they want to like borrow some cranberries off or whatever.
I think sometimes people just don't want to. Some people just don't want to play. They just don't.
I think that's a flawed player. Right. So moving from characters to players, you're a flawed player if you don't want to roleplay. Because of saying that you don't want to roleplay means that there are roleplay opportunities in that campaign. That campaign has a precedent where there's meant to be roleplay. Therefore, you should be roleplaying. You should make a character that's good for roleplaying, and you should expect to be roleplaying at some point. So that's
sometimes people find it hard is the thing. Like you're not as good at flowing in.
So do you think it's sort of something a dominant figure in roleplay should do is help other characters in boosting their confidence?
Yeah, but is that in-game or out-of-game or both?
Both. Yeah.
But how would you suggest a fix for that in combat? Because whereas you can see the dominant aspect of RP may come from a character's personality or the player's personality, in combat, there's no real fix to having a power game character and having Teamwork.
Again, I think this is where your GM might be able to help you here with various scenarios that maybe play to that power game character's weaknesses or something like that, where the other players can actually do something or be sort of more effective.
Well, that brings out the old how to should power game characters be allowed? Because if you build a character who's so excruciatingly optimized, and the rest of the party is average, and maybe one person's newer or built a less powerful character and prefers roleplay, then you're going to get the power imbalance in a fight, which means the DM's either going to go, let's build a flat level one, which will be average for most of the party, but a power game character is going to breeze through it, or you up the difficulty and risk killing the person who hasn't upped their character, or maybe even the whole party, or the rest of the party.
Is it really fair for the DM to pick on one particular player? I think it has to be like more of a soft way of countering the.
Well, yeah, obviously you can't like
player. You can't make all the enemies attack that one character.
Or this one power game character is locked in a prison. Everyone else has to go save him. Like you can't really do that
it's very hard to balance. You can't balance that kind of thing because everyone creates a character differently, and you just have to kind of hope that someone who doesn't have a very good combat character doesn't throw themselves into the front line like I normally do and then die. So
I suggest you stay. Gets one shot.
yeah.
The problem with the power gained combat characters is usually if you've power gained your combat character, usually your character will be very lacking on personality because the character has just been geared entirely for like the concept mechanically, rather than like having a overarching concept that flows between the combat and.
I don't know. I think you can do. I think you can definitely have characters that have sort of almost exploited the game mechanics so that they're very powerful in combat, and I think they can have good personalities as well.
That section is that kind of section annoys me because power game characters know they're power gamed, and players know if they're power gamed and if someone else's character isn't, and so they will go into certain RPs knowing that they'll probably be in a higher position or a better position than the other person in roleplay because they're simply better in combat. If there's party fighting or something, a person who has a power game character will generally never back down from conflict because they know if this does go into party fighting, they will just come out and win. Because
would you argue with the power gaming or more the role play?
Would you argue there's
I'd say it's an argument with the role play because
I think it's both.
Doesn't in game know that they're necessarily stronger than the other characters.
No,
but so you're saying it's meta.
But you always have an intrinsic amount of metagaming just from playing the game because you can't help your subconscious metagaming. Yeah, that's the thing.
Even if
as a character who's power game, you will come into. If you're like, the big old barbarian dude, and there's a shitty halfling rogue who's got like 4 decks, I don't know why, but he can't hit anything, and he's just generally got very small amount of hit points. You will come into like conversation with him, and you will know that if this does devolve into fighting, or if this devolve into this character making fun of me, I know I could just squash him, and therefore he's no threat to me, and anything he says or does, it doesn't matter. It's kind of the thing of when you make a villain in a D&D or in an RPG or in anything, if you're a higher level or you've got better stats or you're just generally better in combat, you won't feel threatened by anything, and it kind of takes away from some amounts of RP, I think.
But up to a point, some of that is RP, though. If you think you are stronger than someone, you shouldn't have to fear them. And sometimes, I feel like it's probably fair for a GM to punish that. Like that. That's a sort of the character's got too cocky. They think they can take on the world. So when they fight that little set of goblins, the goblins have set up a pit trap. The guy falls in, and he's going to have to like struggle his way out after being like thinking himself better. But I think
one of those goblins is better than he thinks they were.
Up to a point, it's reasonable for a character who they think is more powerful than another one to go, well, I can probably take you. Like D&D possibly falls into combat more than like a real life scenario or like a fantasy book scenario. Maybe combat happens less, but then it's part of the game where we sort of know that if a conflict that isn't resolved in the way that we want it to, combat is usually an option that we can take. It's depends on how much realism the dungeon master wants to do.
I feel like, particularly in D&D, combat is usually the only way a party settles something. It normally always devolves into combat when it's D&D, if we're talking D&D.
Yeah,
that's what the thing is made for. It's made for you to do combat. Roleplay is not at the same level as combat.
The game isn't built for roleplay because you have to make roleplay yourself. There can't be like a book that says here are the rules of how to speak.
It's true.
And people forget that they should be making their own fun sometimes, rather than I should wait and see what little narky little man is going to come around the corner that I can beat the crap out of.
Yeah, it's the same as every RPG. They can never have any rules, or they can never have any system for role play. You have to do it yourself, and so combat is the only thing they can put a system on. And because that's the only thing you see visually or you can do mechanically, people sometimes feel like that's the only thing they can do, and everything else is just kind of willy-nilly and whatever.
Unless you have an interesting case of DM who treats the especially in D&D editions, the charisma stat as a roleplay stat, which I can see a lot of people doing. I mean, there's a lot of persuasion, deception, intimidation.
I I don't like when people do that. When roleplay can just kind of be. I mean, I that's how it should probably work. I just personally don't like how you can fall back on a role if you roleplay badly. Like if you just say something totally illogical to someone, like you're trying to barter for like a potato, and you're like, I want to sell this potato to you to 500 gold pieces, and they're like, maybe no, and you're like, let me roll persuasion, and it's like a nat 20. It's like, well, I'm a bard, I have plus 11 to persuasion. That's a 31. My roll. He buys the potato for 500 gold.
That's a DM not intervening.
Well,
in any way.
That's an exaggeration or something that could happen. But generally, it's stuff like a character having to kind of go back on their principles because someone's just rolled very high. Sometimes in like, especially in,
you don't have to use rolls. You don't have to.
Well, yeah,
like, the modifier and the stats are there to look at. So, like, you don't have to roll for everything. DM can, like, someone says, "Oh yeah, I want to sell this potato for 500 gold." They have a look at your charisma and they see it's -5, and they're like, "Right, nope, you're dead."
It's a bit like the deception thing, especially in inter-party stuff.
Oh, yes,
like,
I'm aware you're not a fan of the deception insight check.
Well, I just sometimes feel it's like if it's an outlandish lie, but it's like I roll deception. It's like, oh well, you have a plus 11. I can't do that because I have a wisdom of -1 or a wisdom of 0. I have average wisdom, and I still can't tell if you're lying, even when you say I have a horn that has a house on it.
I think that's the DM not stepping in again.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I mean, well, because the thing is, I think deception rolls are a measure of how, or at least insight rolls. Insight rolls is a measure of how much you can like gauge if they're like from their facial expressions, how they're acting. Whether you roll like successfully or not, your character in terms of like metagaming doesn't know how well you've rolled.
No.
And so they can always make their own judgment after that.
I'm a fan of if I, for example, a character's like he's taken some gold off a goblin. I say, or you've taken gold off that goblin, and he says, "I'm rolling deception. You roll insight." I can fail. I fail the insight, and he gets like 31 on deception. He's like, "No, I haven't got any gold." I mean, I still have the choice of going, "Oh, okay then," or saying, "I believe myself."
Yeah, like you, because it just because you can't gauge anything off of them and go, well, I mean, like I can't see them, like they don't have a facial twitch or they don't have like they're not looking away. Just because of something like that doesn't mean you can't still sort of stick to what your character thinks.
Yeah, I think people wreck the role.
There's no way to know. There's no way to know. Like you think they're lying, but
there's never a way to tell. Is there? Like you can lose.
Well, that's why I think just generally it's a bit bullshit. That whole kind of system of.
But in real life, what is there? What is there to go off of in real life? There's no physical like way, right?
But how realistic
insight is generous? Insight is generous by the fact that you're able
to be realistic.
Is it?
Somewhat.
It's a simplified attempt to be as realistic to a medieval fantasy setting as possible.
Yeah, I think Josh is talking more about the mechanics of specifically.
I feel like you just don't need the insight. I mean, not the insight, you just don't need a persuasion check. If you're not persuasive enough, just generally in roleplay, then no one's going to be persuaded, and we
I
don't.
think you're wrong, right?
Yeah, but
how far do you build a character who I want my character to have a 20 in charisma? I want that. That's like my ideal character is a 20 in charisma. He's going to like convince everyone with his like smooth words, and then like I'm just like not persuasive. Like how far do you limit someone's ability to play something they?
Well, maybe we should get better, Fiacco. Maybe we should get better at words.
That's bad roleplay.
Like physical stuff like that. Like.
Yeah,
I mean,
bad roleplay.
Everyone would like to get better at roleplay.
But how good should the extremes be? Because
how much do you limit someone by like what they?
I'm going to use this as an example. If I use this as an example, we have Josh's. Some may consider it very unjust idea that vicious mockery in 5th edition is not judged by the roll, but judged on how good the player's insult is.
Generally, I hate vicious mockery as a spell because. Like it's just magic. You could say anything, and technically it's a vicious mockery. But I'd like it, so it must be like a pretty good insult. because you're insulting them. I know it's magic, and you can say you stink, and it's like, oh well, it's magic, so they still take psychological damage from that.
Your character's got a plus 10
What's the
charisma.
description of the spell, though?
It's just like your insult has magic, like it's magically enhanced or something, and so it hurts.
It says you unleash a string of insults, so you should be saying stuff out loud technically, and it has verbal components.
Yeah. But you can say anything. Is the thing? It says string of insults. Your insults can be so just terrible. They can mean nothing. And it's like, well, it's got magic to them, and so they will still face psychological damage.
But should it has verbal components, yes, but I mean, I don't expect when someone
says they're enchantments.
To go
There's an
fireball or
interesting
something
bit
like
here
that.
that says, if the target can hear you, though it need not understand you, it must succeed on a wisdom saving throw, which is a bit strange, because if what you're saying, Joss, is the insults have to actually sort of be offensive for the
That was just for fun, I think. I think that is a fun way of doing it. That's a fun, homebrew way
I just like them to be insulting, because, it's an insult. It's supposed to, they have to feel something. There has to be passion into them. Because you can have the most bored, monotone bard still causing psychological damage.
An ugly nose.
Yeah,
4
exactly.
points of damage.
Your nostril hairs are so long, I could play my harp with them.
That's actually quite
but that
good,
is
though.
really horrible, isn't it? That would deal 1d4.
That's quite funny.
It's like, I don't know, your brown hair looks like poop. That's like...
No, but that is also then an insult.
Well, yeah, it's an insult.
You can argue anything's an insult.
Well, exactly. That's the thing.
Also,
it's like, you
it's
just
a matter
say
of perspective.
I think it's just it would enhance roleplay if people actually did insults when they're casting their vicious mockery. But then in combat, some people are just lame nerds and they don't want anyone else to have fun. So they're like, what the hell? Why are you saying these insults? Stop having fun. I want to roll a dice and stab someone.
It's kind of the things of what is something like improvised weapons. They only do a D4. And so normally people just wouldn't care about them because they can do a great sword and it could be 2d6. However, if you're in a bar and you have your great sword, but if someone takes what are pool balls? What are the balls and...
Is this when you did your bloody thing and you threw a ball?
Yeah, talk about me and all my...
He threw a snooker ball across the
I threw a
zone.
snooker ball. And that was quite fun. I felt like that was quite fun. And yes, it won't do as much damage as a great sword, but it's fun. It's something different.
Yes, but damage in D&D is
Look, it depends on the DM ruling. Because, say for instance, if you rolled a really good roll, that'd be the sort of thing where I'd be like, oh yeah, give him incapacitated for a turn. Jesus, they've been clocked out.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't like combat being the same. Where it's I've already got back to the power gaming thing. I've already got the best, turn efficient, turn I can do ever. That will have the most damage output, and there's nothing better than this. So I would just keep on doing that. Because that's the best.
I don't like it, but I end up doing it quite a lot, which is TikTok combat, where it's swing. They take damage. They swing at me. I take damage.
But you've got to make it fun. I mean, if the campaign is meant to be played, you all get into combat and you just start being like, yes, I roll my dice now. My turn's over. You can make it fun if you want to, but not everyone wants the combat.
By just role playing where you hit.
Yeah, you could. Well, you don't have to roleplay when you hit. You can roleplay anything about combat, literally anything, because it's D&D. There are no rules technically. Everything is up for interpretation, and it's not your turn starts. You just have to roll straight away. Say you want to move 5 feet instead of I moved here. You could be like, I slide around the corner. You can add little bits of flavor.
Yeah, but sometimes the DM will make you roll for that kind of stuff, and you can't do your cool stuff because you failed your roll.
No, but then you just instead you try doing it. You're like, I'm going to try and shirk around this little cliff edge, real nice and acrobatically. You roll a 2, and you're like, and then I plop over and I crack my skull open and die.
Yeah,
and that's fun.
I mean, it's fun, not for you as a player.
It's fun from the role playing part. It's not fun from fuck, my character just got aced. But it's fun from that's a fun, interesting bit of roleplay.
Yeah, I just feel sometimes when you do something fun, the ending of it, because it will never be as good as a great sword. Sometimes I feel, at least myself, I feel a little disheartened that something fun can never be as as good as just a whack. Is the thing.
I mean, yeah.
No, but then your DM can give you like inspiration or extra damage if you wanted to bend
obviously,
a little. Like say you go back to the snooker ball thing, right?
Yeah.
Say you're throwing a snooker ball and let's say we have player A and player A goes and they say I pick up the snooker ball and I throw it at him, rolls a d20, gets a 16, yeah that hits, rolls a d4, gets a 2, and they add less strength and they're like, oh yeah, well I deal 4 damage. Yay. That's boring. That's really boring. But you say someone like picks it up, they like lick their thumb, they like squint one eye, pick it up, throw it with top spin at this guy, clocks it in the head. The DM should be like plus 100 damage.
Skim it like stones across people's heads.
You skim it like stones, and the DM will be like,
but then you'd have to do rolls because of that like amount of finesse.
But then you either need a manipulatable DM, or
you need a fun DM.
Or a fun DM.
You either need a DM who's not like rigidly stuck into the rules, or like a DM can be a normal DM, and they're like, right, my player wants to do something cool. I'll make them roll a dice for it. If they do badly, they can't have their fun. But if they roll well, they can have their fun, because it's stupid to allow one player to like dominate combat, not from the like, mechanics perspective, but from the roleplay perspective then. Because you could have a player who every single turn they try and do something spectacular and try and hog the limelight, much as you have a character who sits there and tries to maximize their damage per turn. It's not fun for people in the party if they could do that every single turn, but they could have their moment. Everyone should have their moment, but not one person should have the moments, all of them.
Again, like always, the answer to every one of these questions will be, you have to have a balance, and that's really it, to be honest.
You do, though, don't you?
Well, yeah, as in we can. There's not really we argue about stuff, but there's not really much to argue other than you just need a balance. So
yeah,
but where is that balance?
I guess.
Should we consider
numerically? Where is the balance?
Should we consider that the end of the power gaming discussion?
Yeah, I mean probably. How many more questions have we got? We probably need to breeze through a couple.
I hate magic in 5e.
6. Okay, so the next question is, how important, as both a player and a DM, is a player's backstory? Is a backstory necessary? Is it?
No.
Does the DM need to read it, or do you need to know it, or can you just
if you have one, they need to read it.
Yeah.
Can you plop into a campaign as an entirely new character and have the same experience as someone who's
it's not integral. Is I think the main thing we're trying to get across. It's not integral because you yourself know your character, and you don't need your backstory telling you what your character is. You can use it as like a reference point, but realistically, your character can evolve and change as you deem it because it's your character. And you will start from somewhere. You don't need to write it down. You can just tell it or improvise it. It's the thing. So I don't think it's integral.
But it depends again on the campaign setting, because if you're in a campaign where your character is or the GM has asked you to build a character that's already a like well experienced traveller, you can't walk into that campaign with no backstory, because that implies that you're not a well experienced. But that implies that you're not a well travelled character because you haven't written a backstory.
No, because if someone asked you why you experienced, you can say, 2 years ago in the forest of Mordor, I fought the big dragon Greg, and he breathed fire on me, but I stopped it with a tree, and then I grew 5 feet, and then like chopped his tail off and ate it for supper.
Okay, which 5 feet is this? Is this height or like the appendages?
It's like height. Grew a whole 5 feet in height.
His lungs.
And then chopped his tail off and ate it for something. And it's like, you never need to write that down, and it's still your backstory because you just made it up.
But
have it.
It's still a backstory of sorts, isn't it? You still had like a vague idea.
But that vague idea was made.
But it's not necessary.
Well, yeah, it's not necessary because you are just an experience. Like no one can refute that as the thing, because it's a checklist for your at the start of your campaign. You need to be an experienced adventurer. You can't just go in and say, I have no backstory, therefore I'm not an experienced adventurer. You are, because it's what the campaign needs you to be. It's the thing. So I don't think you need a backstory to show that.
But what about Dungeon Master using a backstory to create stuff like world lore? You are, by building backstory, you're already
Dom, I didn't know we were going to go
It's not necessary, Dom. It's not necessary. If your DM has said that, or if you've made a backstory, then there should be a backstory. Therefore, the DM to work
So
with.
then it is necessary if the Dungeon Master asks you to.
Well, that's a very specific case where the Dungeon Master said it is necessary, and therefore it is necessary.
In my experience, we have always used backstories. I think it's
well, not always, but most of the time.
But, however, note that we usually
but by the fact that we're doing it more than we are not, that must make it more important.
That we
it helps with like grounding your character concept by having a backstory. It doesn't mean it's necessary. It's more important how your character acts.
Can I note how that we usually build characters with backstories and sometimes with characters or NPCs in them, but backstories are very rarely actually used inside a campaign by the Dungeon Master, or especially as a party, maybe. And if someone in the party's backstory gets used, you hope everyone's backstory is going to get used, because it's going to feel bad if someone's character gets picked on. But in the same way, a certain character may get their backstory side quest opportunity and not want to do it, in which case there's no point in them having a backstory in the first place.
It's difficult to implement a balance between how much backstory you do use, but I think it still helps with stuff like world lore.
It helps.
It's a bonus thing.
Does it help with Dom? Does it help with world lore? Like, if the only backstory I've ever written that I'd say helped with world lore was the one where I wrote a war into the world.
Yeah, exactly.
But that is a very specific example, because that was like 1,600 word backstory where it went back 3 generations.
Okay, well, if not, then it also solidifies the Dungeon Master's idea of what world lore is more interesting, because they can then look at what lore people have used and taken from the lore pre-written.
Does that not punish the boring? I suppose D&D in itself could be deemed a punishment.
Boring is bad.
Yeah, because if you're going to...
No one pays to watch a boring movie intentionally, do they? Because no one likes boring things. Why make a boring character? Who is going to find that fun? Not even
What is
you.
specifically the question? Is roleplay needed, or is roleplay help? Is backstory needed, or is backstory help? Because we can all agree that backstory is help.
The necessity of a
the question is
I
the
don't
necessity of a backstory.
I'm agreeing with Josh.
It would definitely help you. It would definitely help a DM. It would definitely help you to some people, it would definitely help them solidify their character. It would definitely help the DM to see what their character is like. But you can just ask them if you really needed it. You don't need the backstory to tell you that. You can just ask someone, okay, what's your character like? I'll say, oh, it's like this. You don't need to read a backstory for that. That's the thing. It's not. I don't think it's needed. It's helpful, but is it needed? I don't think so. From that silence, no one refutes.
Have another comment on it or not?
No, I agree with what Josh says. I think it's helpful to have a backstory sometimes, but it's not necessary.
I wouldn't say it's like strictly like necessary, but I think, especially I know for myself as both a player character and for a GM, it is really, really helpful if you write it or have at least a very good idea of like where your character came from and why they're doing what they're doing at the moment, which a backstory can provide.
Yeah, but I think it's also like the problem with having a backstory is some players will fall into the trap of they write a backstory and they won't shut up about it, and their character is completely dedicated to their backstory and they will not change at all. There'll be no character development, and everyone will just get bored of that character within the first couple of sessions because they just keep up the same old thing.
Do you think so?
Because my parents were murdered, you guys can't murder anyone, or something like that.
I see campaigns where people go through the entire campaign without talking about characters' backstories, except for when they're like brought up like by the Dungeon Master. I think it's a very, very uncommon thing for that to happen.
Well, because
I think there's nothing bad with your backstory never coming up, but I think there is something very bad with your backstory always coming up.
I think your backstory never coming up is probably one of the worst things to happen, because if you spent the time writing one, especially if it's not a necessary thing for you, if you spent that time and the Dungeon Master doesn't utilize it, and you
I'm talking from the player. I'm talking from the player, not how the DM brings it in. I'm talking about the player, like bringing up like how they're acting or like linking.
I think possibly some people use it as a crutch for roleplay, but I don't know how much of a bad thing that is, because
I think it's a bad thing if they use it all the time. If they use it a few times or a little bit,
Oh well,
it's another balance
in
thing.
moderation. It's okay.
Yeah.
Which is reasonable because
Which is where it should
also
be.
to think of if D&D is meant to be realistic, how often does someone you just met ask you about your entire backstory? Not very much. No one really.
No one cares.
Have we ever really had a campaign
exactly.
where that's happened though?
No one really cares.
I think the best.
Well, NPCs sometimes exposition dump on you. In real life, no one would do that.
I think it's best that when backstories are hidden from other party members, and sometimes they have like the dark or secret reveals or stuff like that they have in their backstories, because that can create moments of either party tension or like party sympathy or something like that for other members of the party. I think like the slow reveal, whether it's like, oh, I used to be a Christian like you, but then I took an arrow to the knee or something, and the party like hates Christians or something, and they're like,
and arrows to the knee.
That sounds like a good example of a fun way of having a backstory involved with the party.
yeah,
and
that
roleplay in
doesn't
general.
require D&D, the Dungeon Master, but it requires the setting to be right.
Well,
Yeah,
it
but it's
requires the
like
character to be
you have
built
to
to
have a
setting properly.
secret then.
Well, the backstories are secret. You're not going to like walk up someone and, like you said, you're not going to walk up someone and just dump everything
As
about
in-
you onto them.
Yeah,
mean,
but you
so
growing
it
up on a
wasn't really
farm is not a very good. Sorry, do you need a good secret then?
No,
No.
you don't, because of like you don't have to have an interesting backstory to be an interesting character.
Well, no, yeah, but we're going for the whole like. Sometimes a backstory is good to bring up a secret. So I'm guessing if we want to bring up a backstory, you have to have a good secret to bring up if we're going to bring it up at all. Is that what we're talking about? If we're going to bring up a backstory, there needs to be something good in it, because just making a backstory and then telling something about it would just be boring.
It's much better to have no backstory than to have a bad backstory.
Well, yeah, or just have a backstory. You can have a backstory where nothing happens. That's like how most people's background stories are. But you don't have to say it. Like you could just be a farm boy who just went into the big city and became a knight, and like, that's not very interesting.
It is interesting. It is interesting. It's not like super groundbreaking, but it's like it's something. I mean, like I was a little bit interested when you said, "Oh, farm boy went to become a knight. Why did he go to become a knight? How did he become a knight? How what did he face along the way?" There are all these sorts of questions you can then ask.
Boy who went to become a knight, but you could write a full like up to 1,000 words or more of why maybe perhaps his father was a knight who lost his legs in a war. And
that's mean to your DM if you're writing that amount.
Yeah.
If your DM have to sift through 5 players worth of backstories, it's all written 1,000 words.
I'm the worst culprit.
For the record, the last time I did that, the DM did ask for it, and he regretted it.
Well, look, that's his fault for taking buying off more than he could chew.
Isn't it, Dom?
What? I did not ask for any backstory of that length. That was something you dropped
Right,
on
this
me.
is an argument for another time.
That was something you dropped on me.
You asked me to write world lore, so I wrote world lore in my character backstory.
And was it boring? Yes, it was boring.
It was like the Silmarillion levels of engaging.
A boring backstory leads to a boring character.
Which was true in this regard.
It was not true. He was a fascinating individual with many. Shut up now.
Anyway, Mr. Mediator, we'd like to mediate us on to not hating on your characters and on to another.
On to another topic. Okay. Now this bounces off the backstory one. How important is characters' goals, drives, and/or motivations? Do you need motivation as a character, or is it just a good motivation to follow the plot?
Okay, well, this is where I
With
feel
side
like a
quests and
character
that
needs to
sort
have some motivation. Without any motivation, you will just have a character. Or a character which is so irrelevant that no one will ever care about them ever.
But
If you have no drive, you have no passion. But if your whole thing is just following the plot and you have nothing else other than that, and you're just a bland character, well, yeah, you're just an NPC. And even sometimes NPCs have
not even an NPC.
Yes, even NPCs have some NPCs have drive to follow the plot and do various things. So
you have to have something.
Or
Because
you're a murder hobo.
just being here, just being part of the party because you're part of the party, and just following the plot because you're following the plot, and it doesn't have anything. There's nothing there to draw upon for anything.
But then are we back to the debate on if it's a need or just want? Because if someone just wants to play D&D by sitting around listening to the story, they've got their character backstory, they can input their things at certain times, but don't want an actual drive. They're happy to let other people take the story where they want it to. Is that an absolute requirement to need the motivation? Like, is it something that will be required for the D&D?
Well, okay, you need to have at least someone to have something. Is the thing.
I disagree with you, Josh. I think that you don't need it, but it's really boring if you don't have it. I think everyone should have it.
Yeah. I'd say you need to have at least one person with something other than.
I think you need at least everyone, otherwise you're really boring and you've let down your party and your DM. Your DM then has to work with a bit of an annoying player who's not really contributing to the game very much.
But they are, because they're just following the plot. Is the thing. He is going with the plot.
Yeah, but then when the GM gives you options, then what does that character do? Because the plot has perhaps a multitude of directions that it could go in, because the GM's giving the players a choice. But the player that doesn't have any motivation wouldn't choose either. Because
the thing is, most of the time, we don't know what the plot is until we start the session. So most of the time, we don't even have a drive to complete the quest until we get the quest.
But your character should have drives so that your character wants to complete the quest, rather than the player metaing and wanting to complete the quest, which is what probably ends up happening a lot, because a lot of characters won't have drives, because it's hard to make drives for a character.
Fine, as long as the role play is there. As long as there is role play and there is some sort of excuse for it, it's not a bad thing for players to want to follow the plot, right? Like, I feel like I personally would actually see roleplay sacrificed over enjoyment of the game, by maybe your character is less inclined to go and see the orcs. They've had problems with the orcs in the past, but it should still, if the player is interested in those orcs, I think I would even say it would go over roleplay, and go for the orcs.
Well, I feel like it like intrinsically everyone will have a drive. Most of the time, it's just because they're a good character, and so they will follow the plot because they're a good character. Like, everyone will have a drive. It's more so, does anyone have any like specific like big drive?
Does racism make you a good character, Dom? Is racism cheap? Yeah, because Dom was talking about having a problem with the orcs.
Racism can make a good character, I think, because you could have a drive to say, like, purge all the elves. You know, that means they're going to end up doing something, and it's going to lead to probably a few interesting roleplay scenarios before it gets boring. When it starts getting boring, the DM needs to step in, or the DM needs to pull the player away at the start if the campaign was set in, like, elf hell, where it's an island entirely inhabited by elves, and they just have one guy who wants to just murder elves. The DM needs to take that player and be like, "Oh, mate, no."
So once again, it's the DM needs to micromanage everyone, and it has to be balanced.
To actually have control over their campaign,
and they do. Yeah, they do have control.
Unless you have a weak-willed DM.
That is then a flaw of the DM.
I feel like we will get onto a session.
They should be purged. They're a dirty elf. The weak must.
We should keep.
Only the strong was.
I think we should keep the topic of a session of weak-willed DMs for a session on DMs.
Well, however, though, it is part of the creating a character, which is the DM should have involvement in people creating characters.
Yes.
Like, it feels like a real thing to have a dungeon master.
No, they don't have to. Some people just whip up a character and not run it by the DM at all, and just be like, "Hey."
If you start playing in games which are not organised beforehand, so like an online game, a lot of times you'll see people with pre-built characters. They'll roll up to like 30 odd forum pages and go, "This is a character I want to play. Will you take me? Take me.
Let me
in."
And
then they're accepted into one, and then I'm not sure what goes on in there, but if a dungeon master doesn't look at the character and make sure it is fitting into everything, they should be purged, I believe was the consensus.
Yeah.
Purge them!
Purge them.
That's just a lack of communication between the player and the dungeon master, really, because I think, in my opinion at least, there's one thing a character has to do is fit in with the setting, and if
That's
the
probably
dungeon
the most
master
important.
Whoa, and the
enforce that.
party. It's the thing.
Well,
the,
yeah.
the other
I
players don't
think
know what the other
setting
party
is
does.
more important than party.
I don't think so.
I think you're probably right, but not by much. I think if you build a character that's innately going to cause party conflict, you're a bit of an arsehole.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
But I'd rather
Depends on
have
what kind of party conflict, I suppose. Moral conflict.
personally, I'd rather have a character who doesn't fit in with the party on the base, on like any basis, than a character who constantly ruins immersion of the other players in the game by his actions.
But they'll also ruin fun. A lot of the time with
Yeah.
party conflict, you'll have someone they've built a character, the character's quite strong, and they throw their weight around.
Yeah, and you can't do it.
They're the one who causes the conflict, and then they throw their weight around. For instance,
don't
like
think
if you
so.
look, right,
I don't think so.
For a specific example, do you remember Luna Freya? Luna Freya didn't have weight to throw around, yet still argued just from a roleplay perspective, which I think is probably the way you should do it, rather than
that's
being
because
like,
of Josh's weight in
do what I
roleplay.
want.
That's because Josh's.
Pardon?
I don't know.
that's
Even
Josh's
Luna Freya
weight in
could do
roleplay.
stuff. Like she
No,
wouldn't,
but she couldn't like pick you up and instantly murder you.
That's
true.
what Sam's character could do in that
Yes.
specific scenario. I don't see your point, Harry.
I think that there's like a party conflict needs to be in a certain way if you have party conflict.
I don't think I've ever seen party conflict that is based off one character, like throwing their combat weight around.
Well,
I think that's almost all party conflict.
I think party conflict.
Yeah, you just can't see it very well.
I think
That's
party
the thing.
conflict has always been ideological.
No, that is no. Look, you have the characters conflicting morals, and one of them starts like pressuring with they are like being passive aggressive, being like, look, I'm a bit of a powerhouse. You can't go against what I say. What I say goes because I'm a strong character.
Was that ever?
Yes, I think that is what most party conflicts end up being. Two characters basically squaring off on the person who's got a weaker character having to concede to the...
Well, that's
if
what
there's
I'm
no
saying.
backup.
Power game.
I don't know. I can't think any of examples that follow that. Like
Wait, what was the question again?
I think it was about
the characters need.
Wasn't it originally about motivation?
It was about the cow.
Is party conflict good? Just about party conflict in
It
general.
wasn't
Oh,
about.
well, I mean,
no, it was about. It was about character goals. It was about motivation.
About like conflicting.
Yeah, but I think
building a character that doesn't fit in with your party.
yeah,
I think it's a bad thing.
I'd say a DM because a PC can't see what other PCs are building and they don't know, and I feel like that's a good idea because unless beforehand it's decided that everyone knows each other, if you don't know what everyone's building and you don't know who they are, then that's just easy to roleplay when you're introducing yourselves. And if you don't know who they are, you can't exactly make a character who will fit in with the party. And I think that's when the DM needs to like look at everyone's character sheets. And so a DM who doesn't look at a player's character sheet is not a very good DM because there's a potential that there could be some bad party conflict, which can't be helped because no one really knew what character anyone was playing. It's the thing.
Yeah, let's go back to the guy who really hates elves. Yeah, say
Yeah.
your DM has that character, and then the rest of the party are all elves.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a big mistake on the DM's part for not letting the players know beforehand, because that is immediately going to lead to some sort of problem, resulting in death or characters
I think
getting.
it could be really interesting for at least some characters to find, develop and find solutions to particular flaws or ideals that they have. I think that could be some really interesting character development.
It won't, because people are, as we said earlier, most of us, for example, are socially inept and won't end up working out the problems and will end up having an argument, it almost escalating to combat, and then everyone else stepping in and being like, guys, please, can we just get on with the quest?
It's very hard to have character development is the thing, because it's very hard to make your own kind of character
development was my next topic.
Oh, well,
so let's
great.
discuss the
Shall we then?
Should we talk about the character arc, and should you as a player create the arc for your character before it has happened and how you wish for it to go out? Or should you wait for the events to unfold and build an arc around how the DM
Doesn't matter.
uses the landscape?
Doesn't matter. Your choice.
Yeah, as long as you have something.
And is an arc
Could potentially
possible?
work.
Is the character arc possible?
I think it's very, very hard.
Oh yes. Well, it's hard, but I think it's most definitely possible. We've
feel
seen
like
it done.
I don't think it's always possible.
Have we?
Well, sure, not perfectly and not brilliantly, but there have been characters that have most definitely changed and developed in many ways across the course of a campaign. Is that not what a character arc is?
I feel like when something like that happens, you will just be called out for being contradictory, because no one really realizes it's either a very quick, sudden change, or it's a change that no one can really perceive, and then no one really knows about it.
Yeah, well, then that's a bad way of enacting the change, because the change should come about from an event or a series of events that are actually easily relatable to leading to that change.
I don't think it should be a very quick this event happens and then that's it. I've got a new character. I don't really like the very sudden change because I feel like it should happen. Yeah, like you said, over a series of events.
It needs to look.
Your character doesn't have integrity if they just change at any.
Yeah,
also,
thing happening.
It's just one big event.
I feel at least your character ultimately at the start of the campaign something has changed, something has made them meet the rest of the party, right? So at least from that perspective, for me as a player character, my character will change over the first 2 sessions at least a little bit, just because I'm adapting to the character and the character's adapting to the party around them. Is that not sort of character development in and of itself?
That's more of a necessary thing, unless your character's a complete edgelord, and which, by the way, stupid idea for making a character like that in the first place. But if you were an edgelord and you're I don't want to work with the party, and then you end up liking the party, well, your character ends up actually working with and liking the party after 10 sessions or so. That is then development, but you should always get along with the party, because otherwise it's not fair on your DM. Actually, I think at that point, if you're constantly being a dick to the rest of the party and fucking off and doing your own stuff, it's taxing.
And also, in terms of development, developing from something negative to fixing that is at least the common one to think about. Have you guys ever tried developing something bad?
Yeah, I did. I built Angelo, who was an intended racist with the intention of having a character arc where he'd grow to like the party despite his own personal beliefs. It didn't really work out that well.
He liked the party from the beginning.
Yeah.
That is probably the argument. Yeah. But
What a dad. Well, you probably just got a bit burnt out from trying to keep up the...
I tried to start it, and then I probably lost interest in persisting with that effort and just made him into a family.
That goes back to how difficult it is, and everyone agreed that it's difficult to make a character arc successful.
And also, it's quite difficult because ultimately you as the player don't know what's going to happen in the campaign.
Or do you?
Unless you've... Well, if you...
That's a whole nother argument.
Okay, that's another argument.
Right.
Okay.
I have read this module before! You fools!
You as the... both as the player character and you as the player don't know what's going to happen. So it's quite hard to sort of perceive or sort of foresee a character for your character across the course of the campaign.
Well, not really.
That's the sort of stuff that you can talk out. Right?
Yeah, if it's easy a flaw that needs fixing, then that's that can happen whenever. If you're I don't really know. You could say if you're a racist to I don't know, elves or something, you'll see enough elves to be okay, maybe they're all right. You will definitely be able to fix something if it was a flaw that needs to be fixing. You can perceive a character arc or a character because some character developments don't need anything specifically happening in the for it.
I think if you have the guy,
one of the better things is trusting your dungeon master, right? To go telling them and go, okay, I want my character to develop from this to this, and then just sort of anticipating the moment where they decide to flip the switch, and you can put on some good roleplay for it. I think talking out with the DM is great for that.
Flip the switch is a way of putting it. But flip the switch is what we're trying to avoid.
Well, do you think then maybe you should have conversations with other players, as well as the DM? Because of just having characters develop off like events around them and NPCs is one thing, but surely you could get in touch with other players and out of game you could, with the DM or even without the DM, talk about like how your characters could develop by other things happening in future that your characters could then do, instead of just a one-on-one conversation with the DM, you know, and that makes it really interesting.
If the dungeon master puts in like a few events in which like characters can like help each other, like they could in theory force like a situation where one character is like has the choice or not to save another character. But if characters are like pre-plan that, like I'll send my character into combat, they'll go a bit crazy, like they'll walk into the enemy lines, and then maybe we do some like roleplay after that. Like, I think, yeah, it could definitely work. It's probably uncommon.
It's definitely uncommon.
I think people need to... A lot of people think at the end of a session or something that they don't need to think about their character until the next session. When really, they could do something like out of the session to build their character with other players. I feel like a character's development doesn't only have to happen in session. It can be built upon outside of session.
Like me and we say there's a long rest, and me playing a racist will have an out of game but in game conversation with an elf during that long rest over where we have like a debate, and during that debate my character comes to a conclusion or something. Or
maybe they're more of a shaking a bit.
Because that might have an impact on me and the character I did it with and the DM if they're present, but they don't have to be. But then it might seem like a weird switch out of nowhere for the rest of the party who weren't present to see that.
But then you can explain that, right?
Yeah,
I'm sorry for my previous attitude. Like things have changed now. Like I talked it out.
Or would it be more interesting to go before the session, say like the next long rest, I'm going to talk to your character about racism, and then we can semi-plan it or something? I don't know.
Both of those are good, I think.
Yeah, I feel like...
I think...
What?
I was going to say, I feel like the more in-game the development is, I like the better, because...
No, but you plan it. You say to someone out of game that, next time in the long rest, I want to have my character talk to your character about the whole racism and elves thing. And you're like, okay, great. And you both like compile ideas, and then you have like a proper discussion like you would from those characters' points of views when you get back into the session next week.
Because therefore you've got time to formulate arguments that your character and their character would use, and it wouldn't
Bingo,
be just...
exactly. You do. You have all the time in the world. This is very idealised. These are like wondrous ideas that would be awesome to actually happen.
Yeah, it's
very hard.
It's a lot of time spent talking to a lot of people to come up with ideas and stuff, but...
We went from like every other answer was a balance, and this was just, it's really hard.
We gotta do it, guys.
I don't want to.
Perhaps we should begin to use our own theories in our own sessions.
Yeah.
That's just a theory. An unsavoury theory.
Thanks for watching.
We're not done yet. Christ, hold your horses.
Look, I don't even want to say it.
Okay, the next topic's DM and character. Relationships between the DM and the character creation process. I think we've sort of covered that. I want to talk about pushover DMs in a separate podcast.
Man, jeez.
I mean, it's an important part of being a DM. It's how strict you are in like
how lenient. What you allow, what you not.
Yeah, especially in terms of homebrew and all that.
Allow nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
It's the only rule.
No prisoners.
Book. And we've talked about the DM. We've talked about the DM introducing your character's backstory or side quest into the plot. So the last point I have so far, and we'll have questions from the four of you afterwards if you would like to raise anything, is your character's interactions with other characters. How should the party interact with each other?
Well, I think we brushed over this a little bit before in some of the previous ones.
It depends on characters.
Well.
It's a good thing if the party can interact with each other and have actual dialogue, because they should. If you think about things from real life once again, like we've done a couple times, you're not going to travel around with a band of like 5 other people and say nothing to them at any point, you're gonna gain like interpersonal relationships with them. You're going to like make friends and enemies and have different relationships with every single one of them. You know,
Is enemies
how
a
can you
viable
be a
option?
tight, close band and go through life or death situations without that? You can't.
Is enemies a viable option? Or is that-
Rivals more than enemies.
Yeah, you can't have an outright unless the GM has like tried to make the campaign like a player versus player campaign, which most of us don't.
How would they even
Then
work?
you can't. Exactly, it's just you make
It's
it
can't
hard.
game your
It's
character
another
from
hard
the
thing.
start.
This is going to be it's hard is the answer. Not that it depends.
Definitely.
But like,
I tend towards it depends quite a lot. Because it depends on
Yeah.
the party. Like, it depends on who's around. Like, it's a lot of...
Yeah, the characters, the personalities of the characters.
Yeah. And I guess as Mark was saying, like, you get into your first session and that's where you start deciding on how you act around people. Like, it's a thing you probably do during the first introductory sessions, where you start role playing and you decide how other people are interacting with you and you make judgments based on that. That's like, it's probably not even worth it to talk about it outside of a game unless you're going for something drastic. The classic I hate all elves,
No.
and then
Mighty bastards.
so,
into the knife is.
To bring it full 360, is the guy who hates elves so Frozen?
No,
So it
he's
can be
his brother.
the same example.
He's his brother.
Ozone.
Ozone, yeah.
Ozone.
And he wants to get the elves, and he wants to
Because
Does he
they're,
want
he
to
wants
put
they're
them all
to times
in
their
control?
population by 1.5 so that he can kill even more elves.
Is it because they're destroying the ozone layer? That's why ozone hates.
Well, maybe that's what he thinks.
But it's actually humans destroying the ozone layer. He's misguided, and that is his development.
Well, look, then we get
It's a
into
full
like
character. That's the
then we
thing.
get into
Good
the
character
problem with
We've
development.
built a full
metagaming,
character
yeah?
based on Frozen.
Your character may not know it,
Frozen.
right?
Frozen.
And therefore he should kill the elves.
Yeah, maybe.
Don't metagame.
Don't metagame more. Ozone's coming for you.
Ozone wouldn't metagame, so why would you?
I think metagaming can come at a different podcast, probably. Is there anything else anyone wants to talk about creating a character before we pull the plug on this?
Don't create a character. I don't want to see your character ruin my
Randomise it.
campaign.
Right.
Just pick one of my NPCs and do exactly what I
Don't
do.
build characters. Don't play D&D.
Don't play
Yeah, easier.
You make it easier for the DM.
It is a
If you
rabbit
don't build a
hole.
character.
You don't want to fall.
Do you think it's all right for a DM to like step in before a campaign and say, "Hey, everyone, you have to be like all this class or all this race,"
Yeah.
or to give you like a heavy restriction?
Because
on your
there's
character?
always
Yeah.
the thing of DMs can give you pre-built characters. I played the
DMs can
campaign.
do whatever the fuck they like because
They
the players are the
can,
ones
but
playing.
is it okay?
That's their world.
They can, but is it okay?
Yeah, because
I
the
mean-
players don't have to play. If they're like, this is too much for me, this will not bring me enjoyment, this is a waste of a Saturday or whatever, like, they can just leave. It's like, I think they can put whatever restrictions.
If that's
they want.
turning people away, does that make it then not okay?
As long as they're
that's
telling
causing
people,
players cut off.
like, it's fine.
If they're no,
Because I think you should be able to, but you know, like, is it actually okay to do that?
Yeah,
I think
I
it's
think
like
if they're
It's your
telling
world,
people
man. It's your
what they're
world.
going into, like,
yeah.
it's a reasonable thing to put whatever restrictions they like on their game. They can do what they like, and if you do turn people away, as long as you're not like destroying your own friendships, like it's right, like.
So then it does cause a problem. Should it?
I still don't think it would. Is the thing, like.
But you just said that as long as it's not destroying friendships, implying that it could potentially lead to like tensions between people.
I
think it's more of just an extreme.
Example.
I don't believe it's a circumstance that could happen if I suppose it could, but unlikely. Let's go with unlikely, and that if you want to build a campaign with weird restrictions on characters, like the dungeon.
You
Master
called
can
it weird. You
make
called it
choices.
weird.
Well, like,
Just saying. I'm playing a devil's advocate here.
We noticed.
But you did call it weird, which it seems to be like it's like it is like an issue.
I doubt it's an issue. I doubt it's an issue. It could be, but I doubt it.
Sounds like the sort of thing that you'd like to avoid, though, from the way you're talking about it.
I don't know if you have a very like specific idea in mind as the GM as the plot, and you want the party to be like a specific group of, I don't know, monks or something, then you would have to replace that restriction on the campaign. But I think as long as you're clear about it, and then I think it's fine.
Okay.
Because the players can always just say, "Nah, I don't want to play a monk. I'm not interested," and then they can just leave. Like, sure, that means the GM might have a few, like, fewer players as a result, but I think they're still welcome to do that.
So the GM should say before they start the campaign that they want that, like, time before, say, "Hey, I'm going to do a campaign. Everyone's going to be monks." Instead of, "Hey, I'm going to do a campaign," then everyone gets like, "Oh, I'm excited for this campaign," and then the DM's like.
But even that, it just borders on like being disrespectful to the players and their time more than. Well,
doing that second one is disrespectful. Yeah. The first one of like pre-establishing, "Hey guys, you're all barbarians." That.
And you're all called
the player turns up to the session and goes, "Why are we all barbarians?" I didn't want to be a barbarian.
You fool, you didn't get the memo, did you?
I brought my ozone character.
Yeah, no.
Well, I'm going to have to put the FR in your ozone.
Wait, you said barbarian? I said bardbarian.
Frick. I wondered how we could be barbarians at level 1.
And also Frozone.
It seems impossible.
Is that the end of our discussion then? Is there anything else?
Sounds like it.
I'd like to raise?
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. Would anyone like to do an outro?
Thank you for watching Harry Minds Gaming.
Wait a second.
And free claps. Bye.
Right, that's it, guys.
That's it.
Wrap it up.
Fare you well.